thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Ruth Escueña. I work for Evenflow, and today you are attending the first communication and marketing webinar, actually given as a part of eShape capacity building, different workshops. So, so together with EARSC and Francesca, we have organized this for you. We hope that you'll like it. A little 2 words about Evenflow. For some of you, you know us as your partners or otherwise, but we are a Brussels-based but space and high-tech focused consultancy. And we have business development and support services, and one of our services as well is communications. So I have together today with me two communication team members, communication and marketing consultants, Liza and Simon. So they will be presenting today part of our effort to create these brands that stand out, that tell stories, that invite interaction. So that's what we will try to achieve as well today. And you will see, I'll show me the agenda. So one of the things that I wanted to mention at the beginning, we have booked 1.5 hours for today, but the webinar will probably end earlier. We were supposed to have 3 speakers. Unfortunately, for some unexpected circumstances, one of our colleagues could not make it today, Asaf Koppel. But Liza and Simo are here, and if you have any questions, we will address them during the presentations, after the presentations, and even via email at the very end, so don't hesitate. And Liza will come second, and she's our media and society specialist who's very enthusiastic about social media. So I hope she'll manage to transfer you some of, for those who are maybe more skeptical, will get on board. But Simo will start, I will pass on the floor to Simo in just in a second. We will be very happy as well if you could take 2 minutes at the very end. I'm announcing it at the beginning to make sure that you don't miss it. Feedback, so we would be happy to have your feedback. I will share a link at the end. And then, just before that, some house rules. So we'll be happy to see your name and organization. If you, as I mentioned, use your camera, don't hesitate to use the chat for questions. And the webinar recording has already started. It will be available later on as well on the eShape YouTube channel. So that is it for me. I'll pass the floor on to Simo and then Liza, and then come back with the questions.
Hi, Ruta. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And go full screen. So welcome, everyone. How we're going to address this workshop is we first thought it makes more sense to explain to you why a strong brand is important. So then move on into ways that you can build a strong brand, and then pass on to the activation of the brand. And then we have a few use cases that we would like to share with you, focusing mostly on storytelling and visual communications. So, to brand or not to brand? I guess the answer is to brand. So I don't want to go too much into detail about why a strong brand is important, because I assume most of you understand the value of branding, but it all starts with customer recognition. The more known your brand is, and the better associations your audience has built with your brand, it enables you to attract more customers, and for them to become also more loyal. If you've done a good job with your branding, with the services you offer, then they are most likely to come back to you. It goes without saying that same applies for potential partnerships you would like to establish with your partners. and of course increase financial performance and better talent. So yes, all these benefits are associated to a strong brand, which is why you should care about it and try to make the most of it in today's session. So now we're going to tap into the main elements of building a brand strategy. Um, and I will start with knowing your audience. So I understand that most of you are rather adept at it because your projects require narrowing down your audience and knowing your niche very well. The same applies for the branding. So for the branding strategy. So first step is yes, map your audience, put your stakeholders into perspective, and then create sort of personas, we would say. If, for example, you are working, well, you're developing a solution that helps maritime companies optimize their shipping routes with Earth observation and EGNSS data, you might want to think are the what are their expectations? What do they want to hear from you? So that would be one part of knowing your audience. And then the second important part is to monitor your competitors. Although all of you are working within a niche, as I said before, uh, it's really important to develop a sort of peripheral vision, I would say, and benchmark your service or your product against what your to what your competitors are doing, because then this will help you differentiate from them. And that will bring me to my next slide, which is the so-called USP, or unique selling proposition. So a unique selling proposition is essentially and it's the pure essence of branding, is what makes you stand out in your market, within your community. What is that you do better than your competitors? For instance, if you are developing an application that helps precision farmers improve their yield production, why is your method better than your competitors? For example, do you use a specific Sentinel dataset? Or have you developed an algorithm that gives you this competitive advantage over your competitor? So this is a very important step for the branding, because you need to identify it, and then you need to make sure that this unique selling proposition is reflected in all your communications. Um, has to be on your website, the articles, your mission statement, but we'll go into that later. So this is a very important pillar of branding: unique selling proposition, what makes you stand out. And then we're moving on to tailoring your messages. All these three elements are very closely interlinked, but there are subtle differences. When we're talking about tailoring your messages, and side note, there is going to be a very concrete example at the end of the presentation. You need to well, your unique selling proposition, your mission of your company needs to be the same. It needs to be clearly reflected in all your communications, but different audiences within your stakeholders are interested in different aspects of your product. Consider the following example. You have, this is the example that we're going to see at the end, a policymaker would be interested in how the solution you offer enables them to um, generate informed policies, or how can you, for example, how they can support specific objectives of a policy area like the so-called EU Green Deal that everybody's talking about it. Then one of your main audiences if we're talking about precision agriculture, to put it in a context, is a farmer, the farmer will most likely care about saving costs, improving productivity, and going greener. So the story is the same. They both use Earth observation data, space data combined with GNSS or not, but for different reasons. The benefit they get out of them, they are different, which is why they need to be reflected. Like the tailoring of these messages should be applied to the articles you will be producing for your website, your social media posts, or any other communication you engage into. It could be, for example, a presentation to an event you go. So tailoring your messages is really important. My colleague Liza, she will give you a very detailed overview of social media, how to create tailored content. So that will bring me to the second pillar of building a brand strategy, which is the brand identity. So if we would like to define what a brand identity is, it's the collection of all the elements that a company creates to portray the right image to its consumer. Uh, in simpler words, this is basically the associations that a consumer has creates with a specific company, be it visual or be it verbal, as we explained before. So of course, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind when we talk about branding is the logo. Uh, yes and no. So the logo is very important. Sure, it's basically the capstone of your brand strategy. But there are other elements that we will see later that you need to get right in order for you to have a consistent branding. So a logo should be, first of all, memorable and relevant. And when we say relevant, we basically mean that your logo needs to reflect your company's mission, vision, slash objectives. Um, from my personal experience in communications, I can tell you that most logos that stand out, and that is for a fact, are the logos that they're simple and versatile. And by that we mean you don't need to go crazy about using tons of colors or having curved lines or having circles. Simple lines, one or two colors are more than enough. Of course, this is related to what your company is about, but our my advice would be don't try to overdo it. A simple logo can be very successful as long as it's supported by a range of other elements within your branding. And that brings me to the next slide. My favorite, the color palette. So some companies don't always get it right or tend to neglect it. The thing is that there are many studies. There's also an MIT study that shows that um, a consumer is very likely to reject or, well, uh, accept a product based on the colors that they see. So on a specific website, so to speak. So it's very important to get to know the basics of how colors work. For example, there is a whole color theory behind this part of branding. If, for instance, blue is associated to calmness or to specific segments or specific sectors, namely maritime or aquaculture. Same applies for green. If, for example, you are developing a solution um, about precision farming, precision agriculture, or protection of monitoring of biomass, uh, you most likely will have to choose green, other shades of green with a bit of yellow, so people can create this association and uh, reinforce your branding. Um, then one more element that is important, and this we're going to see in the example that we have for you at the end of the presentation, are the basic colors that you need to use on your website. So uh, you have the colors that they will make part of your brand, which could be some of the basic colors: green, orange, red. But then you need to choose neutral colors to make up the basis of your website. Uh, this helps you avoid mismatches with the content or unbalanced colors. So this is rather important. Then moving on to brand typography. Um, Again, research has shown us that using the right fonts can make a big difference in your branding strategy, um, because the brand fonts are not only going to be used um, on your website, they will also be used on other communication material that you might produce. It could be your cards, it could be press releases, it could be presentations or elevator pitches. You need to create a sort of consistency between all these different platforms, or the means that you're going to use the brand typography. Again, what is also very important here, and that we'll also see on the next section, is that the typography needs to be easily adapted to a mobile version or to a tablet version, so to speak. And now I'm going to pass on to, well, before actually going into the brand activation, perhaps are there any questions, or is there something I was too quick? Feel free to ask questions, and I guess Ruta will curate them. She's right next to
Yes,
me.
yes, I'll check. But yeah, don't hesitate to write them in the chat as soon as you have one, or yeah, or leave them for the end.
Mhm. Okay, so then I'll just move to the next part, which is the brand activation. So here I'm going to talk mostly, I've highlighted the influencers and the social media part because Liza is going to speak very extensively about it. Being an influencer herself, you should say that. Don't be, yeah. Um, so yeah, um, having gathered all the most important elements that constitute help you create a brand strategy, we're now going to pass to the activation part. So how do you communicate your brand to your external stakeholders? First most important is to set up a website. Um, there are various platforms for website hosting. We usually suggest WordPress because WordPress has thousands of templates that can help you create your website. The main, the basic elements of a website should be an about section where you clearly define your mission, your vision, your objectives. You explain who makes part of your team, your employees. Um, a second section could be products or services based on what you're developing. And then there should be a section called either articles or press releases, or alternatively, it could be newsroom. And under it, you could have articles, press releases, media kits. Um, And then a contact section. It goes without saying that, of course, you can populate your website and create as many categories as you want, but these are that should be the skeleton of your website. Overall, a tip that we would like to give, or based on our experience and what we've seen, don't try to put too much on your website. Don't clutter it. As much cliche as it sounds, less is more. So stick to the basics, and yeah. Then a second channel we suggest using to amplify what you're doing is a newsletter. So of course, there are various platforms you can use. And having a newsletter is also a very good way to segment your audience and categorize it based on different thematic areas. So it's a very important marketing tool that can help activate your brand. Um, Here you have some ideas of content that you can include in your newsletter. These could be success stories of your projects, events that you might be participating and that you would like to engage with other stakeholders, company milestones, anniversaries, for instance, or other interesting facts about your sector. We find the newsletter email marketing to yield good results in terms of visibility and in terms of clicks on your websites. Now, the frequency is something you will decide based on how often you have something to share. Now, given that you are at the very beginning, you're at the nascent stage of your company, we would suggest either bi-monthly or once a month, just to keep in touch with your community. Moving on, we have employees. So it really depends on the size of people working for your company or your project. But having employees as the so-called brand ambassadors is always a good trick to activate your brand. Most importantly, because it helps your company humanize its voice. um, then it's a way to promote your work culture. People want to see what is happening behind the scenes. Um, so yeah, having engaged employees and have them active on social media is also a trick that it doesn't cost anything eventually. Uh, the last bit where I would like to focus, we were a bit skeptical. I was a bit skeptical at the beginning if I should mention the media relations part, because uh, media relations is mostly reserved for, it's a technique that, let's say, big companies, very big clients engage in, but it's not always the case. I definitely believe that if you find your niche, if, for example, you are a magazine, you're specializing in providing solutions for wind energy operators, for example, uh, there are plenty of niche magazines or outlets that, if you pitch and you do it well, the pitching, they can host an article for you. Otherwise, there are always other options like websites where you can upload your story, and then if it gets picked up, it gets picked up, you get visibility for free. Of course, depending on the budget you have allocated for communications, you can always opt for advertorials or for some sort of advertisement on, again, I highlight the niche magazines, the magazines that are very related to your sector. We're not talking about mass media, we're not talking about newspapers, we're talking about either blogs or magazines that specialize. Yeah. And That brings me to almost the end of the presentation. Why is storytelling important? And here we're going to see two different examples of two stories addressing, they're both about precision farming. Uh, One is targeting policymakers, and the other one is targeting farmers. So, why is it important to tailoring your stories? It is very important because in today's hyper-connected world, there is too much clutter, too much noise. So we need to be succinct and we need to be straight to the point. So here you have some ideas of content, of stories you could develop. The first is to address a main challenge in your sector. If, for instance, you're working in the maritime, what are maritime companies looking for right now? They want to go greener. They want to reduce their carbon footprint. How does your solution, when combining satellite data, can can address this? So be specific about what you want to address. What's the added value of your solution? Why is your solution better than someone else's? That goes back to the unique selling proposition element of the brand strategy I mentioned before. Then find a local challenge and address it. Is your company based in, for instance, Spain? Does Spain go through a draft season? How could Sentinel data from your solution help address a local challenge? If you get this right, if you create a story that sells, it can even make it to the press. So it's all about the angle that you choose and how well you pitch it. I would like to give you an example now. This is a real example, the one on the left. I've just anonymized it for the obvious reasons, where we have basically a farming solution developed by a company, and there have been two articles in the press. One was how this particular solution helps farmers save fertilizer and costs, and the other one was really targeting policymakers. So I've highlighted here a few words just to show you how the same story is using, well, it is tailored to the needs of different audiences. So if you see here, the focus is on the farmer going greener, the operational costs, the improved productivity. Um, Here we have some elements about the farmer. Okay, the name, as I said, is anonymized. Um, and here we have a quote by this farmer. So here the idea is to create, to evoke emotions to fellow farmers, so they can identify themselves with this story, and then the company could also eventually gain clients. So this is one approach, targeting companies. And then we have here, again, it's an excerpt of the same company, where this is targeting policymakers. This is targeting an EU audience. So we see, for example, that for such a story, we use a lot of facts and data. We mentioned the European Commission. We talk about the EU Green Deal. So the context is completely different, but then it goes down to, it's again connected to this case study, to the solution. I'm sorry. So it's all a matter of perspective, and how you pitch your story. You just need to find a way to stretch it. basically. And last but not least is the last slide. Perhaps this could allow for a bit more of interaction, and is why visual consistency is important when it comes to creating a website. So we're going to show you 2 examples. Of course, they are anonymized. We don't mean to name shame here. We just want to show a few, some more successful and some least successful practices. So this is the first, both of these, just to give you a context, both of these solutions, they work with Earth observation data, land management data. So this is one, and this is a second. So, I mean, I don't want to say what I think. Perhaps we could make the comparisons. Someone could, from the chat, say what do they appreciate more on this one or on this one, and what do they appreciate less. Where is, let's say, which solution is lagging behind, if so.
There are any specific things that you can either write them in the chat or just open your mic, because we're really a small group. Just big enough for that.
Again, it's the same. It's Earth observation data, targeting the land sector. That's just different visual approach, different organization of the content in terms of the website. I mean, of course, this is subjective. This is very subjective. So.
Yeah, so there's one vote for the second solution.
Yes.
Thank you, Tina.
Obviously, the second solution is more attractive.
Attractive.
Yeah, that's what we also think. So, I mean,
yeah, more vibrant colors. Indeed, that is because.
Yeah, and it, well, according to us, it looks more tidy, and it looks a bit more modern. And one of the main.
Annalise is mentioning that keywords
the
have been
keywords
highlighted.
Which one? For which
in the second, yeah, and some of the keywords that's what's more attractive.
Methods, algorithms, and prototypes discover that. Right. I mean, yes, I agree with all of these, and also I would say the contrast. Before, when we had at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned how we need to be using neutral colors, black, gray, or white, to make primary colors like green here stand out, create a nicer contrast, and give this sleek feeling, this very modern, very modern feeling. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about space, we're talking about technology. So, yeah. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing, right, Ruta?
Yes, thank you a lot, Simo. If there are any questions that you want to ask to Simo, you can do it now, or as I mentioned, there will be time at the very, very end. If there is nothing at the moment, we will move on to Liza's presentation. Simo already highlighted some of the links in between the two. So yeah, I think Liza, you can.
And you can always message us your questions. If you don't have any questions now, you can always drop a message, and then, I mean, that's what we're here for. We can reply with concrete examples. We can give you other tips or links, or pinpoint you to the right resources. So you can even give us a call. We're here.
Yes, we noticed that in the audience there are many different, let's say, people with different expertise. So sometimes, yeah, for you maybe something was new, something was not new. So if you have anything specific, we're here.
Okay, so everybody can hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you see? Okay, perfect. So I'm Liza, and I'm going to be talking about organic social media for B2B marketing. This is focused on organic, not paid. So paid would be like paid ads. If you like Google ads, that's not social media, but Google ads, or paying for your post to be shown as an ad on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. We're focusing just on social media for B2B marketing. So it would be like your own posts, basically, anything organic, non-paid. So we're going to be going over why you need social media briefly, and then mostly focusing on how you can implement social media in a manageable way. So it doesn't seem overwhelming, but it's also very effective. So that will be going through preparing for launch. A lot of that has already kind of been covered by Simo, but I won't be getting into what he got into. I'll be looking at from more of a social media perspective, and then also a couple sample strategies and management tips and tools for managing your success, KPIs. So first up is why you need social media. So what's the point? Like, why do you need to be on there? Social media, it seems like something where you connect with your friends. It's not a business platform except maybe LinkedIn. So what's the point of being on there? It's the same as any other marketing. There's all sorts of reasons to be on there, but such as what I've highlighted here, from brand awareness to generating sales and revenue. But I have highlighted 3 here, which I would like you to focus on throughout this, which is building credibility and trust, nurturing a community, and building loyalty. These 3, I think, really encompass the unique parts about social media that other forms of marketing can't necessarily tap into in the same way. You know, you can't really build a community with a billboard in the same way. So these are the parts of social media I think are really unique, and the reason that you need to be on social media more than just any other form of traditional advertising. It's the unique part of social media. And so it's more than a brand awareness tool. A lot of people think of, okay, we have to be on social media so people know who we are, so we can reach people. That's it. But there's way more to it than that, such as what I just showed with the loyalty and the community. The most successful B2B content marketers focus on nurturing their subscribers, audiences, or leads, and they focus on generating sales and revenue and building a subscribed audiences. These are the marketers whose companies generate the most sales through their social media. They get the most activity through their social media, not just by building their brand awareness. It's more than just being aware. It's more than brand awareness, which social media really gets limited to a lot. And why use social media? For one, like I said, there's that interactivity that you can't always get from other forms of marketing and advertising, but also the internet is a huge part of everybody's life. That's just the reality these days. You know, we're all on a Zoom call right now. Like, we're always, 6 hours and 49 minutes per day is how long the average person spends on the internet. And 92.1% of that is from your phone, which is hugely social media. I know I'm not spending the most of my time on my phone on the internet on Safari or Googling things. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. And so that's where the majority of time is going. 2 hours and 29 minutes of those 6 hours, 49 minutes is on social media, which is a lot of time where you can capitalize on connections beyond the traditional networking space. So I'm sure everybody here is on social media in one way or another. And so is your clients. So is your clientele. So are the people that you want to be reaching in their free time, as well as in a business space. LinkedIn is very much a business space, but a lot of us are on social media in our free time as well. And a lot of us work in fields we're interested in. And so we follow that niche on our social media as well. So it's kind of a sneak attack into your client's personal life as well, but it's reaching exactly the people that you want to be reaching. And there are these great algorithms that get you there. And yeah, so nowadays, 22.7% of internet users use social media for work-related networking and research. The largest portion of that is on LinkedIn. And 44% of millennial B2B customers prefer not to interact with a sales rep at all. They don't want to talk to you. They want to be able to find your business and use it. They want to be your customers, but they just don't want to talk to you. They want to find you on LinkedIn. They want to find you on Twitter. They want to be able to read all about you, learn everything about your business, but they really don't want to be talking to you. That's why social media is so key as we're reaching an age where millennials are in much greater positions. And the same is going to be said about Gen Z. It's just going to continue on this trend. So if I haven't convinced you, I don't know what to say, but we're going to get moving towards preparing your launch. So some background info on this. This is, of course, a lot of this has to do with what Simo just talked about. It's content strategy, it's brand building, but I'm going to focus more on the background that you need on social media. So yeah, a little bit of early research and before you jump into it on social media. So for example, the platforms, there are a lot of platforms, more than this, but these are, some of the big ones that people and businesses tend to be on most. But there's a lot out there and it's overwhelming. So I'm highlighting here a few. Overall, we're going to be looking mainly at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. But I thought it also would be worth it to look quickly at Mastodon, TikTok, and Reddit, because those are also really interesting platforms that could be useful. A big part about beginning your social media marketing journey is figuring out where you want to put your energy and your resources. You have to think about your audience. For example, if you really want to be targeting a young audience, then TikTok is great for that. Like all of Gen Z is on there. But if you want to be targeting specifically scientists, there's a whole lot of scientists on Mastodon at the moment. If you really want to be discussion-based and reaching an academic community, Twitter is great for that. From there, there's if you want to reach a really wide audience, Instagram has a very wide audience that goes beyond just educational and academic stuff. It's more of, it has started as a photo platform, as we all know, but it's much more now and shouldn't be limited to just what it used to be. But yeah, so there's a whole lot. What you have to do in the beginning is just figuring out where you want to be, where you want to put your energy. And I think it's worth it when you're starting out also to check out every platform before you decide, okay, well, let's just be on Twitter. That seems easy, and that's where the academic community is. I think that is worth checking out because there's a portion of your community is going to be on every platform, but each of, depending on your niche and who you want to reach, it is platform specific, but it's also what works for you. If you have a lot of graphics, Instagram might be great for that. Or if you're putting out videos, definitely be on YouTube. So that's, I guess, your first step. And then reaching your audience from there after you've got an idea of where, kind of the lay of the land with all the platforms. How do you find that community on each platform? Here's a bunch of different ways, basically. So keywords and hashtags. I know when you talk about social media, hashtags always come up. And I really hate to say they're getting outdated. Hashtags are not as important as they used to be. The algorithm knows that it can look at your caption and read words that aren't just hashtags. It's about looking at keywords. It's about searching by keywords, searching by all the different ways that, Earth observation could be said, or about climate and finding them through keywords. Hashtags are, yeah, like I said, simply getting outdated at this point. Exploring all platforms, also checking out competition. If you're wondering where your niche is, well, find someone who works in the same area as you and see who they follow, see who their followers are. You got to kind of reverse engineer it. Influencers and thought leaders as well. Go check them out. There's going to be thought leaders in every niche, and go see who they follow, etc. And also, you can just cast a broad net. I don't necessarily recommend this always, but you could just cast a super broad net trying to reach as many people as possible and hope that, well, not hope, there will be people in that net that are potential clients, but it's better to be a little bit more specific than that. But it does work also, and some people do prefer to take that approach. And then, yeah, just taking the time and curating your algorithm. Just scroll. It's time consuming, but that's part of it, is just taking the time. So, sample strategies. There are two methods that I'm going to cover, specifically focusing on the second, but there are two broad ways of approaching social media, and everybody is going to find a balance between the two that will work for you. So the first is maximizing your reach. Like I said, with casting a broad post, this is basically doing the most. This is putting as much resources into it as possible. It would be daily posts on all platforms, diversifying your platforms, being present everywhere on every platform, creating unique posts that are built specifically for each platform. So if you have a YouTube video, you're going to re-edit it so that it can be 9:16 for Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And then strategic investments in content creation. I don't say high investments, because you don't necessarily need to put in a lot of money to take this approach, but strategically investing in your content creation and also aiming for virality and audience growth. This, I feel like, is obviously tends to be much more B2C. But what I assume people in this group would prefer is more of managing your audience. And while this tends to feel very overwhelming, because it's like, it's overwhelming, this approach, this is more where I would like people here to focus, is more about not burning out in the first week of posting, not posting every day, but managing consistency. You don't have to post every day. You can post twice a week or 3 times a week, and prioritize the platforms per your target audience, and also repurposing content where possible. If you have a graphic that you put in an article recently, put it on social media. You don't need to make a whole new graphic specifically for social media or for that platform. And also, like I said, taking advantage of existing content. I promise you all already have content and don't even realize it. I'm sure you have graphics, you have images, you have articles, you have maybe videos. All of that can be on social media as well. And it's just putting it there, basically. That's what I mean with managing your audience, managing your platform, is taking a step back and not putting everything into it, but realizing that this is a very possible and easy thing to do when you manage it. But consistency is key here, is not just doing it for a few weeks or just for a few days, is spreading out your efforts and doing it consistently. So, for example, Twitter. If you want to implement a Twitter strategy tomorrow, here's how I would recommend doing that. So, the first thing is to build your calendar. I have a photo of my calendar here. It's super easy to make. I didn't make this even. This is a template. So I would mark, okay, so I built this calendar. Mark significant days. For example, you can see at the top, this is from October. The first week of October was EU Space Week. I blocked that off to schedule specifically EU Space Week content for that week. I knew that was coming up. I could plan it in advance. mark out your specific days. And also, if you don't have events going on, whatever's going on, think about just relevant current topics. If you work in climate change, then you know that December is really big for ozone content. So you're going to want to block out days for ozone. This is pretty straightforward. After that, it's copywriting. A tweet can be literally 1 sentence. If you're posting twice a week, you only need to write 8 sentences. Throw those in the calendar, or throw those in the calendar and you're all set. 20 if you're going to do 5 posts a week. Whatever fits your resources. If you have relevant graphics and links, that's way better, especially links. If you want to drive people to your site, say you wrote an article, a blog post about the topic, put a link at the bottom so that people can go to your site. Links are key. Graphics are also key because it keeps eyeballs. So if you have any relevant graphics to the topic, throw that in there as well. And then just go to Twitter, paste all these sentences in there, and then you can schedule the posts. And you can do this all in one morning. Then all your Twitter content for the month is taken care of. You don't need to tweet again for the rest of the month. You don't need to write another tweet for the rest of the month. You don't need to go on and press post. They will all be put out on time throughout the rest of the month with that function. It's very easy to get going. This is just where I got the calendar template. It's on Google Sheets, super easy. I just made the colors look a little prettier and put it all in there. So you don't even have to have any other fancy software for this. Just create your content and throw it in there. Outsourcing. So if you want to step it up a little bit or you want to let go, there are so many different levels of outsourcing your content creation. So you don't just have to hire one overall social media manager to do all of it. Say you think you have the resources to create the content, then maybe you look for someone like a strategist who's either specialized in the content or in that platform. You could look for a community manager. That's someone who will post the content and then keep on top of the comments. They'll interact with people. They'll manage the community on social media. Influencers and thought leaders as well. I'll get a little bit more into that after this. But there are different levels to what you can outsource. If you think you can handle the posting, then maybe you get a graphic designer or UGC content. I meant to spell that out, but that's user-generated content. So that's somebody who maybe isn't as high level as a graphic designer, but somebody who will create content specifically for your brand based on their knowledge of platforms and content in general, marketing and the platform. Maybe not as high level as a graphic designer, but they'll create visual content for your brand. There's basically my point with this is if there's something you're not feeling confident on, there's someone out there who can do it for you. And if you're willing to invest in that, there's so many different levels to what you can outsource. Yes. Okay. So influencers. It's not just the Kardashians. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say here is that influencers there are B2B marketers who insist that influencers are absolutely crucial for B2B marketing, which is surprising at first because you think of influencers like the Kardashians. You think of, beauty gurus and people who are focused on B2C. But I mean, influencers can absolutely be crucial because like with outsourcing, they are already on the platform with a huge audience, a pre-curated niche audience that can guarantee basically that your content, your brand is going to get in front of the right people if you choose the right influencer. For example, Simon Clark here. He is he's a YouTuber. He's on other platforms as well, but YouTube is his big platform where he's a PhD graduate in atmospheric physics, and he creates content mainly on atmospheric science and climate change. His followers are all interested in that. They are also scientists. I know that there are scientists I work with follow him. They've graduated from the same university as him. And anybody interested in the topic, not anybody, but 466,000 people interested in the topic, including your potential clients, are following him, and they're listening to what he has to say because he has insights into the topic. So he's already got the niche audience there that can take years to build. This gets your product right out in front of them right away. When to use them, though, can be specific. I would only use influencers in cases of product launches and events. If you have a public event that you want people to attend, then these are the people who are going to want to attend your event if you work in climate change and atmospheric monitoring. If you have a product, they as well can promote that. Just for general brand awareness, it's not necessary. But for events and products, they will get your product and your event in front of the right people. They also have this parasocial relationship with their followers, where there's a trust between themselves and their followers that has been built, and people are much more likely to invest in a product or go to an event that someone they look up to or have a relationship with recommends. So the influencer marketing can be incredibly successful, and like Sima said, I'm an influencer myself, and I know I've witnessed how successful it can be, and people really do invest in big changes and make big investments, especially when it's somebody who they feel they can trust, that it's not just anybody with a big audience, that's somebody who shares the same interests with them and they can relate to on a certain level. Finding influencers can be a bit of a challenge because if you're not active on social media, then it's hard to know who would be perfect for your audience. That's why I say that it's great to invest your time into curating a feed, spending time on your social media so that your feed aligns with your goals in a way. So liking content, following influencers, following thought leaders who are in your niche. And over time, influencers will just start to pop up on your feed. You'll just start to see them. You'll become aware of them. So it's worth investing the time into just scrolling on content within your niche. And that's how you will find them. Also, reverse engineering, go through your target audience, go through and see who your followers follow, go see who thought leaders follow and who competitors follow. Okay. And again, with influencers, Simon is huge. He would be considered a macro influencer. You don't need to do that. You don't need to be paying them 5,000 euros to promote an event. You just don't have to do that. There are companies I've spoken with who focus on B2B marketing that are incredibly successful with nano influencers. That's under 10,000 followers. For example, Merck, the pharmaceutical company, I've spoken with their social media manager, and they invest heavily in nano influencers for just $100, $150. They're happy to post about Merck and whatever event is going on or product they're launching. It can be really successful and cost efficient to focus on nano and micro influencers. Okay. Yes. Okay, so moving on from how to reach your audience is the actual content to go into your social media. So there are three main content types, written, image, and video. And there is a huge amount of overlap. So here I have this little diagram, and the blue is where these platforms specialize, but the white is where you can post that content. So for example, Twitter is mainly a written platform, but you can also post videos and images there, and I encourage you to do so. Same with LinkedIn. All content types work on this platform, and it's the same for also Instagram, and Facebook. Yes. The only thing with video with YouTube, YouTube is difficult for image. You kind of can do images on there if it's edited the right way. I just wouldn't personally. But for the most part, what I'm trying to show with this graphic is how easy it is to diversify your platforms by repurposing content. So for example, here's a sample post that I created based off of one of our tweets. This was a tweet that we made. All I did was throw it into Canva, add a nice background, and suddenly this could be an Instagram post, it could be a LinkedIn post, and it could be a Facebook post. And then you're reaching a different set of people with each post. Same thing for this post. This was an article. Well, this is a sample, so it's lorem ipsum dolor, but this could be an article. Instead of just doing a World Chocolate Day post and saying, oh, happy World Chocolate Day, you can talk about how palm oil is driving habitat loss and turn it into a Twitter post, LinkedIn post, Instagram post, Facebook post. For all of those, these style posts, especially the carousel post where you can slide between images, do excellently. And this is why I say that Instagram is also a text format for written content, because people will read the images. Well, captions aren't as successful, but written in an image is where Instagram does very well with text as well. Also, with repurposing content for, does this play automatically? Okay, well, this is a post that I made recently. I was working with one of our clients, and they had these two graphics. The second one is moving at the moment. The top one is moving right now because it's a GIF, but the bottom one also was moving. And they said, hey, can you throw this up on YouTube? And I said, well, I can, but it's not going to generate many views. It's not going to really do much. It's just a silent graphic not doing anything. It looks cool, which is great, but it's just a silent graphic. It's not going to do much. So I said, why don't I throw a voiceover on it, add some royalty-free music, and create a video with it, which I did. I can show, I think, a second of it, maybe. Okay, I don't know if there's audio, if people can hear it, but I have no. Okay, that's fine. I'm talking. You can hear my voice anyway, so you don't need to hear it again. I'm sure you're already getting sick of it. So basically what's happening here, you can see there's the subtitles. I'm just doing a voiceover on it. It took me 15 minutes to read a couple lines from an article. We didn't even have to write a script because I just took basically the introduction from an article that was already written. We didn't have to make any new graphics. We didn't have to do any script writing. I just read it, threw it into iMovie, and put it on YouTube. Very easy, very simple to make with content that already existed. With that video, I can stop. Okay. We put it on Twitter. It got 64,000 views, which is more successful than any other version of this graphic we have used before, without any music or voiceover. So it reached a huge audience by putting in just a little bit more effort, and making it a little bit more engaging and a little bit more interactive. It also did quite well on Instagram with 1,349 views, not quite as good as Twitter, but still well. And it has been picked up by articles that we didn't brief with a press release or anything. For example, The Conversation found it and gave us free publicity because they just thought it was interesting. They thought it was educational, and it fit an article that they had actually already put out in December, and they went back and edited it to include this YouTube video. So with just a little bit more effort, there was a whole lot more reach that this content got and brought to ECMWF. So that's repurposing content and what it can do. Yes. Next is engaging content. Engagement is huge on social media, and I promise I'm getting close to the end because it's kind of getting long. Engaging content is huge, and basically what I want to highlight here is that you want to speak to the people that are following you. You want to speak to your audience, not talk at them. You're not giving a lecture, you're having a conversation. Think about when you're creating content, think about how somebody's going to respond. Think about creating something that somebody's going to want to say something about. Leave something unsaid so that somebody else can say it for you. That's one of my favorite tricks, is when I'm posting something, I leave something unsaid that somebody else can point out, and it brings more traffic to my post. It boosts it out to, the algorithm will then boost it out to more people, and just bring, yeah, it creates engagement, it creates that sense of community on your post. I say skip the branded intro because I see that's one of the biggest mistakes I see, where a brand will put their logo in a nice 5-10 second introduction with their theme music, and by the time it's over, people have left already. So skip the branded intro, it's not engaging. Invite a response, that's exactly what I'm saying with the think about the comments. Invite a response without saying, so what do you guys think? Say it more inexplicitly in the way that you format your content. And mental stimulation. So when you're creating a video, like I just showed with this content, instead of just a silent graphic, I added music and a voiceover, which is just much more stimulating and engaging to the audience. Oh, this is I didn't mean for it to play, but this is an interesting video I saw that also did a recreation of a similar graphic, where they had a talking fish give the news. And it's just a very interesting and engaging way for people to view the news. And I know it's not super professional, but I thought that it was a really interesting way to invite engagement. There's a lot to be said about that. So I think it's really interesting, an interesting way to invite engagement from the audience. Okay, some quick content insights that I've noticed I think are also easy formats that everybody can follow is first the anti-doom scroll and social media university. So the anti-doom scroll is on social media, it feels very chaotic. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of fast-paced action on social media. Anti-doom scroll is basically the idea of having a moment of calm in that chaos of social media. So you'll see here, this person is just showing nice scenery. And it's something that's very manageable. Sorry, Siri turned on. It's very manageable for people to create something like this, where it's a simple video, but it could also be done with a graphic, an interesting graphic you have, or whatever, something that's you already have on hand, and just add a little bit of text behind. Same thing with social media university. I wish you could hear this one, because this is really great for a really great example, especially with what they're saying. But social media university is basically the idea that people really want to be learning on social media. People love to learn and engage on social media. And so here, this person is talking about the ozone layer. And they're just using all of these graphics, which are available for free online, and a lot of people already have. A lot of businesses already have content like this already on hand. Just adding a voiceover, it makes it very, very interesting for people. It's low production value. It's super easy to make, and we're all experts in our fields already. So it's very easy to create that kind of content. And then to make your life even easier, here are just some of my favorite tools and tips, apps that I like to use. I won't go through and explain all of them, but I think these are all worth looking into for one reason or another. And yes, so quickly, I want to talk about community management, because this is huge on social media and also so commonly overlooked. Community management is, I won't read the definition, but it's basically the process of building your community on social media with various types of interaction and creating a network with people. It's incredibly essential for marketing, because it creates brand loyalty. When people feel like they're a part of a community, they feel more of a devotion to that community, and they're going to continue using your product because they don't want to leave that community. They don't want to, they want to stay. It creates this additional value for for your consumers, and it creates this this loyalty and value that they're not going to want to leave behind just because there's maybe another brand that does the same thing and they want to try out but doesn't have the same community. And it also keeps you fresh in their mind as you're continuously engaging with them. It humanizes your brand as well. You don't seem like just a faceless logo. You seem more like there's people behind the brand. And it improves your post performance. If somebody comments on your post and you respond to them, they're going to come back and look at it again, and that's going to boost it even further. It's going to get more views on your content, more watch time, and get more people coming back to see your content over and over again. And I've also noticed in my own experience that when I respond to somebody, they're much more likely to then follow me because we've now engaged and created a quick little relationship, and they're more likely to follow me and continue engaging with my content. And this is the last section, which is measuring your success with KPIs. There are a lot of different metrics that you can look into, but the two I want you to the trap that I want you to not fall into is vanity metrics, which is mainly followers and likes. You can see an account that has 10,000 followers, which looks great, but maybe they're getting 15, 20 likes on a post. That means they don't have 10,000 followers. They have 10 followers and maybe got lucky with the discover page a little bit. Like if your analytics aren't there to back it up, then followers doesn't mean anything. It just looks good, but doesn't mean anything. And same thing with likes. It's very easy for somebody to scroll past your post, give it a like, and keep scrolling without providing any other engagement. It doesn't, these look great from the outside, but they don't mean anything. The key metrics that you're going to want to look at are shares. That means that somebody looked at your post and thought it was interesting enough to send it to somebody else who might also think it's interesting. Same with profile views. Somebody saw your content, was like, wow, that's really interesting. What else do they have there? And could scroll through the rest of your content. Watch time. Watch time is huge for the algorithm. If somebody is willing to watch a video more than halfway through, it's much more likely to get pushed to other people. If you can keep people watching for as long as possible, that is key. Impressions as well. That means if you have a lot of impressions, it's much more important than likes. That means that people are looking at your content and that it's being seen by a lot of people. They might not take the time to like it, but it's still being seen. And comments as well. That's with the community building. It means that people have taken the time, they've thought about your content, they've had something to say about it. And link clicks as well. Those are link clicks are very clear drivers as the amount of traffic that it's driving to your site and leads that it's generating. So yeah, that is everything from me. I hope it's not too overwhelming.
Thanks a lot, Liza.
I'm sorry I went on a long time. I know I had a lot to say.
I see that some people have to leave, so I'm linking already the form in the platform for feedback. If there are any questions, yeah, Liza, maybe you can mute.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we're in the same room, so thank you for that. So yeah, in case there are any questions, you can ask them now. I'll maybe just share again for one last time my slides, just to remind you that, yeah, any questions? No. So for Simo or Liza, thank you for your patience, and I hope you learned something interesting. But I will not ask everybody to give their feedback orally. You can do it anonymously, like following the link in the chat, and also this is the QR code. And yeah, I don't see any questions. And as I mentioned, feel free to contact us at communications@evenflow.eu. I mentioned at the beginning that this was the first communications and marketing webinar, so covering the basics was important, but it's also the last one. As we are approaching the end of eShape project, also one of the important aspects is the sustainability of all of the pilots and all of the projects. So we see that the communication efforts you do now and the support that you can still receive from within the project, from Evenflow or from other teams around, we really encourage you to use it to build today, your brand to build today. Imagine how it could look in the future, so that when eShape has to finish, you feel ready to continue. That was maybe one of the last words I wanted to say. I don't know, Francesca, if you want to add anything.
I think you covered everything. And, it was indeed really, really interesting to see all of both presentations, and also from Liza. I think that this social media part as well, it's, I don't know, maybe for our generations, let's say, still can be new, and the potential that can literally create also for this kind of field of Earth observation in particular, from really research to business approach. And indeed, again, it's a very, I think it's really sustainable for sustainability of the pilots to have these kind of tools again to continue also in future projects. Absolutely. And this can also just be, sparklings at the moment that could support in the future or in any other kind of reasons and settings. So again, thank you very much for all the attendees indeed, and Evenflow guys to give us this all of this knowledge.